All right, everybody, you are listening to the Adam Messer Show here on WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And my special guests today are Rachel Brune and Carol Gyzander. And Rachel's been on the show several times. And Carol, this is your first time. So welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. This is Carol. I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so would you mind giving just a short introduction of yourselves?
I can start with that. This is Carol. I am excited to be a writer. I had not done this until I was in my late 50s, and we'll just leave the numbers there. But I started writing in 2013. I published a good number of short stories in the science fiction and dark fantasy and horror world. I'm also an editor at Writer Punk Press, and I'm hoping we're going to talk about that a little bit because that's where I got to meet Rachel.
Yep. And Adam, I keep trying to find different ways to introduce myself, but I'll just say that I enjoy writing, I love reading, and I'm starting to dip my toes into the publishing world with our horror indie press, Chrome Girls Press, and looking forward to what the future brings.
And hi, my name is Adam Messer. I was born, I grew up, and I'm here.
We're so glad for that.
Yeah. So, everybody listening at home, I have. So I'll just kind of share with you the backstory here. So I met Carol through Rachel, and I met Rachel through my friend Bobby Nash. And the indie writing world is kind of a very small, connected world. And Bobby Nash was I met him because of a friend named Randy Bishop, and I met Randy at a local convention here in Savannah called GnomeCon back in the day. And then Bobby, I met him through Randy, and when I was doing the Savannah Quill conventions, Bobby was one of the authors that came down, and we became friends, and we've been friends, and then about a year and a half ago, Bobby had introduced me to Rachel, who has Rachel has a blog called Infamous Scribblers, and she interviews authors on that website. And I had just published my short novella, Blood Thrasher: The Devil's in the Metal, and then we did a little blog interview, and then you started getting some stuff together for your horror anthology, Stories We Tell After Midnight, and you invited me
Yep.
to write a story for it. I did, and Carol Gyzander was one of the fellow authors there.
Yep.
So we became friends on Facebook, and so it's kind of like a small world out there. Everybody, there are a lot of good citizens. I like using that, Rachel. There are a lot of people who that they actually try to contribute and help other people. Like last hour, I was talking with Craig Martell. I feel like that the 20 books to 50K group is a great resource, and I love being able to talk with y'all and to hear about your new projects and things like that, and then also to be able to share mine. And it was kind of neat because everybody, before we got on the air, I was like, hey, is there anything y'all like to talk about? And one of the things was how cross working together on different projects, like kind of cross working together on different projects and different publishing things and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of cool. One of the things y'all both brought up were working on the Writer Punk publishing. Is it called Writer Punk Press? Is that right?
Yes, it is. It's Writer Punk Press, and we started out as a Facebook group of writers who like punk genre stuff. And one of our members had an idea saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool to write like a steampunk or a cyberpunk story based upon, and he named a Shakespeare play, and somebody else said, oh, I'd love to do this play, and I'd love to do that play. And I'm like, dibs on Macbeth. So
There you go.
yeah, and just like you're saying, a group of writers who have an interest in common. We all got together and we thought about doing this, and we were all like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Well, it wasn't until my coordinating partner, Jeffrey Cook, put a stake in the sand and set deadline. Get your story in by this date. And so we managed to have a sort of anarchic collective of writers, editors, artists, layout folks, publicity folks, and we got our first anthology pulled together. That was called Sound and Fury, Shakespeare Goes Punk. And we did another one, Once More Under the Breach, another anthology of Shakespeare stories. And these are all charity anthologies, the anthologies that benefit a no-kill animal shelter out on the West Coast. So Rachel started getting involved with us as well. And at that point, my friend who had been the editor sort of dropped out because she was more interested in Shakespeare than other things. But our next anthology was based upon Edgar Allan Poe. And that was way cool. So I took over as editor, and we've done 3 anthologies since then, with a 4th one coming out soon.
And the cool thing about the writer punk group was, I mean, there's many things that are cool about it. Don't get me wrong. But I have been in so many writers groups, from critique groups to groups where we, have a common interest like the writer punk group. And in every single one of them, without fail, someone will say, oh, we should do an anthology. We should all do a collective anthology. And everybody says, oh, yeah, that'd be a great idea. And then it just kind of fizzles out. It never really kind of happens, except for writer punk. And I think that was because we had just a really great mix of brand new authors and folks like Jeffrey, who were a little more experienced at publishing on the indie side and knew what it would take, and folks like Carol, who are very comfortable with a spreadsheet and a checklist, and keeping everybody on task. And so it was just this perfect storm of creativity and organization and experience and enthusiasm that actually made it come together.
I am totally a spreadsheet guy too. I actually love spreadsheets, and so it's kind of interesting you say that, because I love being able to track stuff on spreadsheets so much. um, the anthology, and I'll say this out loud, everybody. I'm not just thinking it; I'm just saying it out loud, which is kind of a weird statement. But the anthology I was talking about, that I'm working on publishing, is called The Devil's Due, and Carol and Rachel are both authors in that. But it's going to be postponed until later on this year because of the current pandemic situation, and I wanted to make sure, especially launching a new brand with the Valhalla books, I want to make sure that I had all the resources and just did the best job. But that's one of the things I like about the folks that I've met, and I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of talkers, just like you said, with different groups, and it kind of fizzles out. And then there are doers. And I'm a doer, and I like people that are doers, and I like people that, they commit to something and they follow through and they do it. And I feel like it makes it a better world for all of us, when we're doing something like that, because it's like, oh, hey, this is a neat project, or it's a cool thing that we're working on. Like when you were talking to me, Rachel, about the horror story anthology, Stories We Tell After Midnight, I was like, this is cool. I've never been part of an anthology before. Let me check it out and see what it is. And from there, a lot of different things have happened. And so I think it's kind of neat to be able to collaborate with other folks and be able to work with them and say, hey, well, this works and this doesn't, or this might work better than that, and like last hour we were talking with Craig. I was talking with Craig, and we were talking about skill sets, building up those skill sets and working and moving forward. And, and it's really cool to see when folks, that you've met are doing cool things. So.
Well, one of the things that I find really helpful is, you have, like I said, your community, and you have your connections, and you're always going to find some that you click with a little bit more closely. And then you always have people who have a little bit more time than others to give back and teach. And one of the things that I think is so cool is a lot of this sometimes happens very naturally. So, for instance, I know Carol just had a story in an anthology, Across the Universe. And I would never have thought, oh, hey, it would be a good idea for people to read their stories and share them. I always thought, okay, I was stuck in that whole, 6 months in KDP, and then, then you can move on. But I think Carol can probably talk about it a little bit more, but it was just such a great idea. Carol, can you explain a little bit more about what's going on with that?
Yes, our editors, Across the Universe, Tales of Alternate Beetles is the name of the anthology. And I was really lucky to get a story in here. They have fabulous, fabulous writers in this who are famous. And then there's me. But, we've got Spider Robinson, Gregory Benford, David Gerald, Pat Cadigan, Jody Lynn Nye, a whole ton of folks in there. And they save some slots for submissions from up and coming writers, which is a great way to do it. But the editors in this world that we're in right now realize not everybody has the money to go out and buy a new book. So what they've asked the writers to do is to record our stories, and they're coming up on YouTube every other day. So
Yeah, I
you can get a
saw one of
feel
the
for it, and
fellows
if you
that did
like it.
that. I can't remember his
Yeah,
name, but
yeah.
he posted in the Chrome Girls group today.
Yeah, Charles Bursch. His is funny. His is a time travel one, and mine is kind of a time travel one as well, but it has to do with dark magic. It's a dark fantasy story called "Deal with the Devil," and my story will be coming up next week, sort of dealing with how did the Beatles actually become famous,
That's
But
really
I like.
interesting because the anthology that I've got is the Devil's Due, and it's all about making a deal with the devil.
I know. I was just cracking up when you were talking about that. It's like I already had the story out in this thing, Deal with the Devil. Apparently, I'm spending a little more time with the devil than I thought I would, but that's okay. That's fine.
Hopefully not, right?
Yeah. It's all good. I'm controlling the pen here, I think.
You think?
Yeah.
Speaking of that, you know, I think it's interesting when you were talking about Carol. You're saying that you're in a an anthology that's all about cats, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and it's even we have an anthology and we have a story bundle of 10 books, and this came about in kind of a fun way. You know how people will post independent writers. We're all friends on Facebook. I have 750 writer friends, which is really cool, and people will post things about what they're doing, and then there's open call sites, and one of these open calls was for an anthology called Cat Ladies of the Apocalypse.
Hmm.
And I am a huge cat fan. I actually have two cats sitting on me right now,
Oh wow.
keeping me company and making me sit in my chair. Um, but the idea with this anthology is that so many things, like The Road is a post-apocalyptic book where you see a man and his dog walking down the road, taking on the world after the apocalypse. Well, they said, let's turn that on its head. And this is Cat Ladies, ladies feisty with cats. It's a little more hopeful than a lot of the post-apocalyptic books.
Mm-hmm.
But the really cool thing about this is we were able to get the book included into a story bundle thing. And that's something that Craig talks about in the 20 Books to 50K group as well. But Story Bundle is a company that releases a group of related things. And if you just go to storybundle.com/cats, you can see that if you pay a small amount, like $6 minimum, you get 4 really key books, which is neat. And then you can pay a little bit more and get extra books as well. So ours is one of the extras, but it's a great way for independent writers to get their word out there and such. But the basic books include one by Jody Lynn Nye and Bonnie Elizabeth, another anthology of cats edited by Christine Catherine Rush, 2 of them
Not to
actually.
interrupt you,
And
but
then,
we have to do the
yeah,
station ID real quick.
that's
Everybody,
important.
yep, everybody, you're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. Rachel, you were
Yes.
just on. We had you on with Elizabeth Donald, and
Yes.
we were talking about the new anthology that you have, Coppice and Break, and you're working on the next one already, right? The stories we tell after midnight, volume 2.
Yes.
And so how's that been going?
It has been going a little bit more slowly. We do have a little bit more time with this one, so but as I'm reading through all of the stories and doing the editing and contracting process, it's like I'm kind of renewing the relationship with the stories, remembering why they stuck out
Mm-hmm.
of 1,500 submissions. And I am getting very excited for this book to get put together and to release, although that is going to be in October.
Yeah.
So a little bit far away.
Yeah, I just shared the audiobook again, that Wrong Turn audiobook,
Yep.
and it's kind of crazy because I listened to it last, gosh, I can't remember. It was like October or November when I commissioned Alidria Hurt to narrate it for me, and it might have been later than that, but I think it was like October, November, something like that. But I listened to it again yesterday and listened to it the whole way through because it's like 55 minutes or something like that. And it was crazy because it almost felt like I was listening to somebody else's story. Have you ever had that happen, ladies? Like where you wrote something and then, you forgot some of the parts and, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Wow.
Yes, indeed. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that character was in here. I wonder what they do.
Well, I'll give you an example.
uh,
One of the things was when there's a character named Beulah, and she's using a straight razor, and she's got this tink tink, and Alidria used, I guess, I don't know, something metal, and some kind of bowl or something, and she made that little sound effect, and when she did, it gave me like these chill bumps.
mm,
And I was like, oh my gosh,
true.
it was real,
That's
real.
awesome.
How about you, Rachel? You ever
Yeah.
had that happen?
Actually, yes. So I had sent a friend of mine a copy of my story, or actually, I think she purchased it when I was available as a single short read, Beowulf, which was a story that I had
Yes.
originally written.
Yeah, yeah.
That was for the English class Ghost Punk anthology. Oh Lord, I don't know if you could hear my phone just sent me.
Say that again.
So Beowulf was a story that I wrote. It was a punk version of Beowulf. And I decided to go diesel punk with it. And a friend of mine who teaches English and is a poet and very literary wanted to read it. So she was reading it. And I had completely forgotten that she said she wanted to read it. And she sent me this line. She's like, I love this line. And she sent me this line over Facebook Messenger. And I was like, wow, that's really great. Is that from a poem you're writing?
Oh, wow.
She's like, no, that's your story. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So that has definitely happened, and I think it's because when I'm writing the stuff that is really that I'm gonna keep, it's usually happening when I'm in a flow state.
Right.
And sometimes when you're just in that moment and the words are coming and they're flowing and you're really into it, I think that sometimes you don't necessarily think about every single word because it's coming from a place other than deliberately concentrating, if that makes sense. It probably makes sense to other writers. I don't know if that makes sense to people who it's kind of like when you were in like when I'm working out and you're in an activity, maybe swimming or biking or something, and you're just letting yourself move with it. That if you've trained yourself up to that point where it becomes this habit, this natural habit, you don't necessarily have to concentrate on, say, okay, don't point my toes down, make sure that I'm pedaling in that nice circle. It just kind of happens. Anyway, I think that's the reason, but it could also be that I keep forgetting things because I'm getting older.
I
I
know
think
the
the flow
feeling.
is important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of get in that monk mode or whatever.
Mm-hmm. There's oh gosh, there's a book, and I can never pronounce this gentleman's name correctly. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, I think. He was a Czech writer, and he wrote a number of really great books. Creativity was one, and he writes about this flow state. He was a psychologist who was kind of looking into what it means to be creative, and he does a lot of writing on that. So if people are interested in that sort of subject, that's a really great book to take a look at.
Oh,
Do
cool.
you remember how to spell his last name? Or do you want to tell us later?
I might have to send that later.
Okay.
It's It's Mihalyi, and usually that's enough for Amazon to figure out where you're trying to go.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Oh, that sounds promising. I find that when I do dictation writing, I do much better with my stories. And I think that's because I'm not sitting there forcing each word out through my fingertips. We're very used to talking and speaking and telling stories in everyday life. And so when I can just talk the story and record it with dictation software, it comes out way better. And sometimes, and that's what I did with a story for your anthology, Adam. I was actually, it's about a guy in a car, and something bad happens. I was actually driving home while I was writing that story, which is a little bit creepy because of what happens in the story, but we won't go into that this minute.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up because I use dictation when I don't feel like typing,
Hmm.
and I'll put on their dictation, because a lot of times when I'm using dictation, I'll just kind of get the meat down. I was actually not talking, but Facebooking with Allie today, Allegia Hurt, because she was asking if anybody else used dictation, and so that's one of the things, Rachel, that like we had talked about a couple weeks ago, that I'm working on the edits for that novella
Hmm.
for Chrome Girls Press, because there are chunks of it that I did that are just dictation, and it's interesting because dictation is really nice. It kind of does a lot of heavy lifting for you, but it's certainly not perfect. But it's great to get down like a first draft, or it's great to get down, like to be able to power through a writing session, and then be able to go back and edit it, because it, there's so many things. There's sometimes where I just don't feel like typing. I really don't feel like typing. I'm like, I've worked all day, but I still want to get my writing in, and I'll use dictation. And Scrivener is pretty good because like I can do it on my phone, and I can use my because I've got like an Apple. Oh gosh, it's like a 8 something or another. I don't know what it's not the newest version, but I'll use the dictation on my Apple phone, and I can use it right on Scrivener, and then it syncs up with my Dropbox, and I can pull it up on my laptop later on or whatever. So yeah, I think dictation's a really great tool to use.
There's a lot of really excellent tools out there. And you mentioned Scrivener. The thing about Scrivener, like for the longest time, I was like, all I need is Microsoft Word and like an hour of time, and I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I finally broke down and started using it because I started doing some right to market, and I wanted to plot things out a little bit more specifically than I usually did. And when I started using it, I realized, oh my goodness, I love this so
I
much.
love the
Um,
corkboard aspect.
well,
Yeah.
I've actually, it's what helps, I think, is that it allows me to make notes as I go,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I was doing in Microsoft Word anyway. But instead of making the notes at the end of the document and then scrolling back and forth, which is what I was doing, I can very easily make a note for a scene and then have that scene be part of my outline. And so I guess the moral of the story is don't be afraid to try new things, especially since Scrivener has like a free 30-day trial. So you're not going to, you don't have to risk anything if you don't like it. Um, but yeah, that really helped. And I think it's just giving me, like I said, a different way to look at the process. But it was already working with the process that I had to begin with. But yeah, Dropbox is also good because when your when your 5-year-old tablet dies, you won't lose all your stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, I had this similar problem where my laptop didn't die, but one of the cooling fans on it messed up, and that's I have Microsoft Word as well, so like I'll use Scrivener for the draft, and then I'll import it into Word, and do it from there. But the laptop that I was working on, the fan died, and so I'm gonna have to get it repaired, and just one of those things about time. But luckily I have my other laptop still, and but yeah, I think it's interesting because everybody does things differently. Some people, they use Microsoft Word, or they might use like an online you know app or whatever. but it all comes back to writing. It all comes, I think, back to the story, um, and I I love the building community part, the relationships. Building relationships with people and talking about who they are and what they're doing and that kind of thing. And um, I also like when it's a mutually beneficial relationship where you like if I like how many times I've called you a bunch of times, Rachel, like, hey, whatever, and just to kind of get your opinion about whatever. Or that one time I vented because I was kind of frustrated with somebody.
It happens. Carol and I have more than once. I've been like, "Hey, you want to Skype?" And we'll just have like a session,
Yeah.
and it's just some we're writers. We all kind of work by ourselves in our offices. Sometimes we'll go out to a writer group, or we might go to work at well, not right now. Now we're all working from our house. Um, but I think that we still need that professional community. Like when you're working in an office or when you're working with a group of people, you still have the ability to talk to people and
Mm-hmm.
talk about the job and have those sorts of professional related
Meetings and
conversations.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. And as much as we joke about corporate meetings, it is still a way for people to interact with other people who are on their within their same social group or work group.
Or
There's
sphere. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that it really helps. um, even for a group of as dedicated introverts as writers tend to be, we still also crave the ability to talk to somebody who knows what we're going through when our characters refuse to do what we want to do and our outline's like, haha, guess what? This is going to happen. Like, no.
Yeah, and talking about the good citizenship type stuff, I appreciate how, I try to do this myself, but I appreciate how y'all are really good at helping share and say, hey, this is what my friend is doing. Check it out if you're interested in something like that. I try to do that too, and Bobby Nash is great about doing that because there are a lot of folks that are not like that. That they don't reciprocate anything, and it's just like a one way. And I've had that happen to me quite a bit in the last year or so. But I don't try to share it with the intention of them sharing my stuff back. But it's nice when you actually have people that are like, hey, this is my friend doing this and whatever, and I try to do that too. Like try just being a good I don't know, just being a good friend and saying, hey, check out my friend's stuff, what they're doing. Because you get some folks, and I hate to say this is like what I've seen the ugly side of indie publishing. But you get some folks out there that they're just obnoxious with the stuff that they do, and they don't really they're not good citizens because they don't really care about anybody but themselves. So I do appreciate how y'all are really good at trying to help other folks out. So
Oh, cool. And I love that we're all doing that for each other. And that's really so wonderful because nobody likes to see an author posting over and over again, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book.
yeah,
Because yeah, I see some people's posts come up repeatedly over and over again, and I see the name and I run away because I already know about the book. Thank you.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's difficult. So it's great when somebody else can share why it was important to them. And that leads into one of the other great ways people can support authors, and that's by leaving a review, whether it's going to Goodreads and writing up something about it, which is sort of a dicey platform for writers sometimes because people leave very honest reviews. But going on to Amazon, leaving a review for a book on Amazon is a great way for readers to help to help writers because some of this is one of the things that they talk about in Craig Martell's 20 books to 50K book and some of the other sites that talk about publicity. But once you get a certain number of reviews on Amazon, they start kicking in with a variety of different approaches and benefits that they will
mm-hmm.
do for you.
Well,
And
I'll give an example of something that that's happened. I posted about it yesterday, but one of my pet peeves is like I love connecting with people, but don't send me a friend request on Facebook and then immediately ask me to like your page. I'm like,
I saw that post and I had the same thing happen, and it's just not polite.
that's what I'm talking about.
Right?
Like not being a good citizen, or it's like we're all in the same boat, but you're not. I don't try to sell. I try to let people know like what I'm doing, but I know that I'm not going to sit there and sell to my family and friends. I'm just hoping that if I share something and it's something that somebody likes and they want to check it out, that it's like some kind of entertainment for them. Not that because I mean, oh my gosh, heaven forbid, I make that 35 cents or whatever off of an ebook. It's really going to make a big difference, right? But I hope
Yeah.
that entertainment value, that they enjoy it, and that it gives them, it brings a smile to their face or something.
Well, the other thing too is to understand that not everything that one writes um, is going to be appreciated by all of one's friends list.
Oh
And I
yeah, yeah.
sometimes see people, I sometimes see writers, mostly newer writers, but I think we all kind of fall into this trap from time to time when we get a little discouraged. But we just, a lot of folks maybe aren't into, say, horror, or they're not into romance, or they're not into the particular book that we are writing at that moment. Or, and this is something that, I have to remind myself, not everybody's a super reader.
Oh yeah,
Some
yeah.
people, I mean, I'm on track to make my 100 books of the year on my Goodreads challenge. But
There
does
you go.
everybody read like that?
Yeah.
So for me, I have absolutely no problem
All
with
right.
the read list. Oh, sorry, yes, I see. Hold on a half hour.
Yeah. We're going to take a little break. We'll be back in a few minutes, everybody. And thank you for tuning in today. My special guests are Rachel Brune and Carol Gyzander. So stay tuned, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
LP Savannah Soundings programming is brought to you by listeners and the Ships of the Sea Museum. One of the hidden secrets of the Ships of the Sea Museum is its gardens. Native plants are interspersed with exotic tropical plants throughout the gardens. Visitors to Savannah can bring in their takeout meals and dine among the trident maples and use the complimentary Wi-Fi. You can find out more about the Ships of the Sea Museum at the website shipsofthesea.org. Voting is now open for Connect Savannah's annual Best of Savannah Readers poll, and WRUU is once again on the ballot. Last year, you voted us best in the local radio station and talk radio station categories. Continue your support of WRUU 107.5 FM by again voting for us in the Best Local Radio Station and Best Local Talk Radio Station categories. And this year, vote for your favorite WRUU morning program and favorite WRUU host. Voting ends at 11:59 p.m. sharp on Tuesday, April 14th, and results will be revealed the night of Tuesday, May 19th. For details and voting, visit connectsavannah.com. And as always, thank you for listening to, supporting, and voting for WRUU LP Savannah. Now you have a chance to support both Savannah Independent Artists and WRUU during this shelter-in-place order to stop the spread of COVID-19. Creatives in Need is a group of independent artists hosted by the Roots Up Gallery, which is collaborating with WRUU during this shelter-in-place to offer an online art gallery at www.rootsupgallery.com. For every work of art sold at this online gallery, the artists receive 80% from the sales and 20% goes to WRUU and its programs like Art on the Air. Interested listeners can go to www.rootsupgallery.com to start shopping today.
You are listening to WRUU LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. This is Sounds of Tarab from the album Zanzibar, New York.
Mahaba wataka nini kongumo mimasikini nikumo niragani aliangutan bani mahaba wataka nini Con gummo mi masikini, ni kummo ni ragani, alian gutan bani, mahabba watakanini. Nauata yehuzuka, engezuka nyota yangu. Nauata yehuzuka, engezuka nyota yangu. Nimebaki kusumbuku, nataka na ulimwengu. Nimebaki kusumbuku, nataka na ulimwengu. Naomba kusitirika, mimi na wazee wano, mahaba wataka nini? Kongomo mi masikini, ni gummo ni ragani, hali yangu tamani, mahaba wataka nini? Kongomo mi masikini, ni gummo ni ragani, hali yangu tamani, mahaba wataka nini?
All right, everybody, welcome back and thank you for tuning in today. I'm your host, Adam Messer, and my special guests today are Rachel Brune and Carol Gyzander. So we've been talking about some different things with their projects coming up and, being a good citizen when it comes to the writing community and things like that. And I had dropped one of my pet peeves as Facebook connecting. This is how you don't connect with people. Don't don't send someone a friend request and then immediately ask them to like your page or to buy your book or whatever. Like I had that happen to me actually yesterday. I've had it happen to me before, but it was just kind of recent. It happened to me yesterday, and then I had another situation where I actually had to block a person on Facebook, and I left a group because of some negativity. And honestly, I just don't have time for that kind of stuff. So if you're gonna connect with other folks, especially on the internet, be mindful of what you're doing, and remember, like Craig was saying, the 20 books to 50K group is not a promotional sales group; it's a resource group. So, like, if you're trying to connect with other professionals in your area, which if online or whatever, keep it professional. Don't try to sell somebody something right away. I used to go to these little chamber meetings, and there were like life coach after life coach after life coach that were there, and they, as soon as you'd meet them, they try to start pitching you. And I'm like, I don't want to hear your pitch. If anything, I'd like to meet you and get to know you. One of the best ways I could think of it is like you wouldn't ask someone to marry you on the first date, kind of thing. So,
well, one of the authors, we talked about Jeffrey Cook, and he actually was.
Your phone's breaking up really bad there, Rachel. Is there?
Is this a little better?
Yes. There you go.
Okay. So Jeffrey Cook, who is affiliated in the Writer Punk group, he has a book called Working the Table, an Indie Author's Guide to Conventions. And that book has some really great advice that can also be translated to the internet. And one of the pieces of advice that he puts in there, and this is one of the reasons why I do try to share people's work. He's like, listen, if somebody comes up to your table and they're looking for something and you don't have it, it's always a good thing if you can say, hey, maybe I don't have that particular genre, maybe I don't have that particular book, but you know what? That table over there, that author over there, they're doing that. And you're going to create this good feeling, this good emotional memory between you and the person who's looking for their book, and also between you and the person that you recommended they go to. And I think that is a great way to think about interacting professionally on Facebook. Even if I see that somebody really likes horror, yeah, I could sure help them out. if they're looking more for, say, military science fiction, I'd be like, oh, hey, check out this person, check out this person, check out this person. Just because that, like I said, it creates that good feeling, that good connection.
Yeah.
And so I definitely recommend that book. Even though we're not doing physical conventions at the moment, there's still some really good advice in there.
Yeah, I
it
used
is
to do a
great.
bunch of conventions, but not selling books. I sold actually I sold toys. I would buy and sell and trade toys, and I got into eBay in like '98, and I would do that, and then doing conventions. And one of the biggest things I think when you're doing anything is just to be approachable, and I like that the good reference type thing because it does. You don't necessarily have to have what they want, but if you treat someone with respect and courtesy, they're going to remember how you treated them a lot more than they would remember what you said. And, so it's really nice. And I'm just trying to say this because, like, there are a lot of people out there who don't do this, but it's really nice to see folks like yourself who actually do reciprocate and they do, try to do it. But not because you're trying to make a sale, or not because you're trying to get kudos. It's like you're just doing it because it's kind of a nice thing to do, and it's like, hey, everybody, check out my friend's stuff, and if you like it, cool, or I enjoyed this myself, that type of thing. So I really do appreciate that y'all do that.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, it comes back to Craig's motto of a rising tide floats all boats. We all help each other out, and we support each other. So you did the same, Adam. It's wonderful. I'm delighted to be here chatting with you guys.
I will say I don't necessarily I don't signal boost for everybody, and that's because sometimes I'll be like, oh, congratulations. And people are like, oh, can you share? Can you do this? And I think I talked to you about this last week. I don't necessarily like to recommend things that I haven't read or something like that. And that's just, because I also want people to, when they see that I'm sharing something, they'll, know that it's something that's coming from a place of authenticity. And so, I do try to make sure that I'm doing that as well. But as much as possible, as much as I can, because it takes 5 seconds to be like, hey, check out this cool thing. And then if I really like it, I will try to find a creative way to continue to let people know about it. For instance, I was talking about this, I'll just take the 50 books group or the 20 books group. Every time that I meet a new author who wants to know about indie publishing or how to publish, I'm like, go join this group. You will thank me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's just the easiest way. It's just the easiest way to be like, go here.
Don't
read,
promote. Don't try to be don't
exactly.
spam.
Just go here and get the information in the little fire hose, and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
I think, and it's also really helpful, I find, to look around at all the different writing groups and find one with which you resonate. And that's happened for me with the Horror Writers Association. It's a group I got into about 3 years ago. It's an international organization, and it's for people who write horror, dark fantasy, supernatural stuff. And it's also got small local chapters. I'm very involved with my New York chapter, even though I live in the suburbs of New Jersey. And it's really cool because we meet every month. We talk about what we have going on. We plan a bunch of events. I help them see certain readings, like a Women in Horror Month reading every year, where we have female writers who identify as female come and read their horror work. And we do a bunch of other readings during the course of the year. And it's a really, really fantastic group. I have to say, even in the midst of this stuff that we have going on with COVID, we had our meeting online the other night, and when I got off of the meeting, I just felt so happy because I had been in touch with so many of my peeps. Now, it's crazy to say that the horror writers are the ones that make me happy, but you know what? It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So it's a great organization.
I agree. I think it's interesting the folks that are in it because I'm a member and Rachel's a member,
Hmm.
and I just joined last year after the stories we tell after midnight. Because Rachel had suggested anybody that would like to join, this would be a great organization to check out. So I did, and and it's interesting because I think you get out of it what you can. You take out of it what you get out of it. Like there's so much stuff out there. Believe it or not, I've been working on organizing a Georgia chapter here in Savannah, but
Cool.
a lot of things happen and boom, boom, boom. So, you know,
Well, there a little bit later we'll probably be fine for that. And if you want, we can certainly talk about offline about how we do things in the New York chapter if you're interested. And such. That one of the things that made a huge difference for me with both my writing and identifying with this group was attending the national convention that they run called StokerCon, and
yeah,
just the number of fantastic authors who are high-powered authors in the horror field yet are willing to talk to anybody. I felt comfortable speaking to anybody at the convention, even though I had not been tremendously published at that point. So that was just an amazing experience. The one in the UK this summer has been put off, but I'm looking forward to future ones as well. That'll be cool.
and I think
Yep.
it's important if you're wanting to be if you want to be a professional in your whatever you're doing, and we're talking about just being an author right now or publishing and that kind of thing, you should look for organizations that you can join. Um, I mean, the 20 Books to 50K group is an organization that is available and free to everybody as long as you follow the rules. The HWA is it's not free, but the membership dues are relatively low, and the resources, they've got a ton of resources as well. So if you whatever genre you're writing or whatever you want to do, you don't have to join necessarily a large organization. It could just be like a Facebook group, or it could be a writers group, like a local writers group or a poetry group or whatever. But it's good to meet and talk with other folks because it kind of gives you a tip guide of like, hey, am I kind of going the right direction? Am I not? What should I do with this situation or whatever? Because more whatever you're dealing with, more likely somebody else has dealt with it and they're going through it right now. Or they could show you like, hey, this is. Have you thought about this option? They can facilitate you with whatever you're looking to do. Let me do a station ID real quick, ladies, and then we'll finish up. We'll wrap up the last 10 minutes or so. Everybody listening to WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer, and my special guests today are Rachel Brune and Carol Gyzander. So, what projects are you working on now, Carol?
Well, I'm just about to release our latest anthology from Writer Punk Press. We were actually supposed to release this weekend, but we decided to sort of ease off on the gas pedal for it because it's a charity anthology, and we felt that independent writers who need the income for their own personal living expenses should have more priority with getting books published. So we've put ours off until more like the late summer and such like that. Same as with your anthology, Adam. And I have a number of stories that are out for submissions. I have, the fun story coming up in your anthology. I have a couple things in the works with Rachel, which is going to be kind of fun as well. So I'm looking forward to all that.
That's awesome. How about you, Rachel?
Well, my big priority right now is to finish the editing and contracting process for Stories We Tell After Midnight Volume 2. Those folks have sent me their stories, and I got to make them a priority. The writing wise, I'm working on the story for your anthology, which I'm having a lot of fun with. It's giving me a chance to spend a little time in the horror genre myself. And then I've got a very long list of projects to get around to. I sat down the other day and tried to write them all out and realized that as I was writing the to-do list, I was thinking up more ideas. And so I just kind of put that on the back burner for a moment. I'm just letting it go. And then I'm also, so I've got a lot of things going on, including trying to figure out how to work and luckily my spouse is home. He's doing a lot of the homeschooling for the kids. And so that's what's going on
Uh,
at Casa de Brune.
that's cool. I am, I wrote. It's kind of crazy, but I wrote the first draft for that novella, Rachel, and I've been working on it on and off, but I also had created like a writing schedule for myself for this year because I had come up with this like signature character series called The Adventures of Tex Riddle, a space librarian. And I was like, remember the old sci-fi
Mm-hmm.
pulp, it's like that.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's kind of a neat little character idea. And womp, womp, womp. I haven't done anything with it in like 2 months. And so I also, kind of crazy, I had not planned on writing anything for the Devil's Due anthology, but I had a story idea come to me about a genie and a genie story, like kind of like making a devil's deal with a genie or whatever. And when I say the Devil's Due, it's like everybody knows that there's like too good to be true type thing, right? It's like if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. That's the whole premise behind it. It's like people that are like, "Oh, I'm going to shortcut my way through this and I'm going to get this," and it never works out like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the whole premise behind that. It's not necessarily like, it's got to be a devil. It could be your neighbor Ron, and you're like, man, Ron said he's going to cut my grass for me, but I wonder what in the world. And then Ron comes back around and says, you remember those sticky buns that you made me last year? I'd like you to make me like that every other week. So you're like, I didn't sign up for that, Ron. Sorry. So, but yeah, I've been kind of. It's weird because I've been trying to do. I have not been doing a whole lot of writing except for like the freelance stuff for the paper, but and even that's kind of slowed down quite a bit. But I've been trying to do stuff where setting up interviews like for the radio show, and then also reading more about like the publishing industry, and trying to work on some of those skill sets, and then also trying to with the social media stuff. Like I was kind of brushing off my Patreon page, which I'm horrible about my Patreon page. I need to get better at that. But yeah, it's I think it's interesting because there are a lot of folks that are sheltering in place right now. I have to go out and work, do electrical work, so I'm still considered an essential employee. But I would much rather be sheltering in place, than having to go every day. But I'm thankful, for having the work and all, and I know that there's stuff out there we have to get done. But yeah, I'm trying to, personally, I'm just trying to work on that. And then, like with the Devil's Due anthology, I planned on doing it, putting out in May, but just thinking about the current climate and it being a new brand with the Valhalla books, I was like, I need to table that and push it back a little bit because I want to do what's best for the authors and myself. And also, with it being a new brand, I don't want it to tank, on the first release, and be like, oh, well, you put it out at a bad time. Eh, you know, any time is going to work, but it's just like I don't have major capital resources to be able to say, hey, I'm going to do a bunch of advertising for it. So I have to say, okay, well, how do I do the best thing? So I decided to put it back. I decided to wait. Sometimes you just have to roll with it and do what's best. I think for the current situation. So that's what I've got going on and trying to in the publishing world and the author stuff. So.
Yep. No, I definitely feel that it's to me. I look back and
You there?
Uh-oh.
I hope we didn't lose.
yep.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah. You just got to hold your left arm up, Rachel. We'll
I
hear
know,
you better.
right? It's working. I've got to get. I'm holding a hanger. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm not holding up a hanger. I don't know if anybody's gonna actually get that. So.
Hey, we've got to wrap it up, ladies. Where can everybody find your stuff, Rachel?
CroneGirlsPress.com is a great place to get information about us. You can come join us on Facebook and then also on Amazon.
Awesome. And Carol, where can everybody check out your information?
Well, you can go to my personal site, which is carolgyzander.com, and that's Gyzander. Or you can look at punkwriters.com. That's where we've got information about the writer punk anthologies that are coming out. And the story that I mentioned in the Beatles anthology, if you go to fantasticbooks.org, that's really cool.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, and the podcast will be available later on at savannahmuses.com for Apple Podcast, and also on Libsyn, which is adammesser.libsyn.com. So thanks a lot, ladies, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.